Hey, how's it going guys, it's Scarecrow, and today I wanted to talk a little bit about World War II's map design, or in my opinion, lack of map design, because lately I've become quite frustrated with the way that the maps are laid out in World War II. I just cannot seem to decipher the original plan behind the maps, and for the life of me, I just cannot understand the flow or the creative process that went into designing them. Now, I've seen a few people complaining about the maps, and I'm not going to talk about the most obvious one here, which is Gustavs Cannon, because that is the exception to this commentary. Gustavs Cannon doesn't adhere to any set rules because it's kind of like the map. It's kind of, you know, it's kind of like a, do we feel like playing Gustavs Cannon? Because it's kind of like a party trick map. That's kind of what it is. You know, you just play it once in a while, and it's alright in small doses. There are people that really like it, there are people that really hate it. I don't particularly enjoy it, but I do admit it is an interesting mix of pace from the other maps. But as for the other maps, I'm going to say that their design, in my opinion, and again, I'm going to stress this, in my opinion, is all average to bad. Just hear me out on this. I have some logic to this. When it comes to the other developers' map strategies, such as Treyarch and Infinity Ward, they both have very distinct, separate philosophies. Treyarch likes to go for linear lanes in their maps, which means the maps are dependable, which means the maps are easy to predict, and you can get a good sense of flow on them. Whereas Infinity Wards are a bit more messy. There's plenty of little alcoves and little hidden doorways. Basically, it's like a little rat race in a map, but they never seem to be that hectic or terrible, in my opinion. They're always fun maps with a lot of creative design and a lot of visual flair that I really enjoy. All of the maps in Call of Duty Ghosts had some sort of gimmick to them that I really enjoyed, and even moving forward into Infinite Warfare, I found a lot of the maps there were also, while taking on a slightly more generic tone with a lot more 3-lane maps, they were also really fun with a lot of maps that have areas where you would fall to your death, or where wall runs, if you failed them, you would also fall to your death. There was just a lot of fun elements there that mixed it up. And then we come to World War II, and the maps, while not lacking any visual flair, the maps certainly do look amazing, and the setting is definitely there. They just lack flow and pacing, in my opinion. Now, I'm going to speak strictly from TDM experience, and you might just say, well, if you don't enjoy the maps and if they're bad, play them in another mode. No, in my opinion, TDM should be the mode that you start with on a lot of maps. It's a mode that a lot of new players and a lot of veteran players feel comfortable in. You know, you can return to TDM because it's dependable and it's fun. You can generally just have, you know, a couple quick matches in TDM before you go and play some more interesting, varied modes. But in this game, I absolutely hate TDM, because the maps are not designed for TDM and for any other mode, in my opinion. But for TDM in particular, they just don't work. They lack so much flow. Now, I mentioned the pacing, and what I mean about this is, in a lot of the maps, there is no time to breathe. Basically, when you spawn in, you're within 2 seconds, or less than that, within a gunfight of an enemy. It doesn't give you any sense of security. You're on alert at all times because you know that there is an enemy within 5 to 10 meters of you at all times. And the maps are either really tiny or really big. There's no medium-sized maps. That's something that someone pointed out to me, and it is actually true. You go from having maps like the Ardennes Forest, which are some of the larger maps in the game, to having maps then like London Docks, which feel like they're crammed into a tuna can. But the biggest fault in most of the maps in World War II, and the reason why there are so many people camping in corners on head glitches, is there is no incentive to leave your spawn. The tactic on nearly every single map is to hold mid and camp the enemy spawn. This is how you play a lot of these maps. You move up to a head glitch that overlooks mid and keep killing the enemy as they respawn and run out of their spawn. And the effect of this is that there is no incentive to ever leave your spawn, which is why you get a lot of people that sit in spawn with sniper rifles, or any weapon in fact, holding down the spawn, and such. This has another effect, meaning that the spawns will never flip. Not only is the spawn system in this game a bit silly in my opinion, meaning that it doesn't flip very easily at all, which means that a lot of the time you'll be spawning on one side of the map for the entire game, but also, when you try to push an enemy spawn to cause it to flip or just get a bunch of kills in the spawn to wipe out the entire team, the enemies will continue to spawn there continuously, meaning that if you don't immediately get sniped by someone that's sitting in the spawn too afraid to leave, you will kill 1 to 2 enemies and focus on killing the 3rd and the 4th while the original 2 enemies spawn behind you, beside you, on top of you, underneath you, and just kill you. The maps just lack so much flow and pacing, in my opinion. Flak Tower is a map that I cannot understand. in World War II. Really, the middle of the map is accessible by every lane, and every lane leads to the middle of the map. Basically, no matter what route you take, whether it be left, right, or mid, it always comes to the same place, which means that there is no incentive, again, to leave a head glitch. Basically, you are rewarded for sitting on a head glitch and camping the spawn the entire game. That is just lazy map design in my opinion. The flanking routes always take you to the most heavily trafficked areas on the map, which means they're no longer flanking routes, they're part of the mid, they're part of the action. Basically, there's nowhere in World War II where I feel like I can flank an enemy, because I feel like if I'm flanking an enemy, there's already someone there watching it because they know it's a high traffic area, and that's the point. If it's a high traffic area, it's not a flanking route anymore. There is one exception to this I've found, and that is actually Point to Hawk. This map, and I've seen a lot of people complain about this map saying that it's just basically a rat race, but it is actually a really well designed map for one reason. It disperses teams. Your team is dispersed generally pretty evenly across the map, which means you have room to breathe on this map. You're not immediately getting into one gunfight after another. You can actually flank the enemy on this map because there is no set destination where there is the most traffic. Going into the middle of the map, sure, you might pick up a kill or two, but that's not where the entire enemy team might be going. You can camp in the bunker, but again, a lot of the action might be happening on the farmhouse or in the trenches. That map, to me, has the most combat variety, and it's the map that most people seem to really hate in the game. And then you have a map like Saint Marie de Mont, which is basically just hold the house in the middle, and you've won, because basically every route leads to that house, and aside from the lane on the far right, that's where all the action happens, around that house. From that house, you can basically watch nearly every spawn point and every flank route. What happened to the awesome map design of Advanced Warfare? Say what you want about the game, but the maps were actually really well designed, whether it be Solar, Riot, Retreat, Horizon, Detroit. There were so many cool maps in that game that actually had really good flow. They matched the theme of the game, the tone of the game, and the flow of the maps was right for the setting of the game. And then you come to World War II where it's the exact opposite. So to sum it up, World War II's maps like to enclose you. They like to herd you into very small choke points, and if you can control those choke points, then you've won the game. There's no incentive to push up into the enemy spawn, because if you do, you will die, and so people don't. They sit on head glitches and kill you as you're coming out of spawn. And do I blame them for that? No, that's just how the game is played. The pacing of the game is slower when it comes to the weapons, and yet the time to kill and the pacing of the gunfights is much faster. The pacing of the actual action doesn't match the pacing of the maps. And that's the problem I'm having with World War II at the moment. I'm never confident in myself when playing on these maps, because the amount of times that I've been shot in the back, in the side, and it's not my fault, it's not my teammates' fault, it's just the way that the maps are designed. And I've seen people welcome this style of map design, which is fine. If you really enjoy these maps and you do well on them, then that's more power to you. But I would prefer to have maps where I can outplay my enemy, where I can flank an enemy, rather than constantly coming face to face with enemies on head glitches or camping in their own spawn. These maps are very head-on, face-to-face with no real flanking maneuvers. So in short, I'm not a big fan of World War II's map design. I thought the maps would grow on me as I played on them more and learned the flow of the enemies and the way that the maps worked, but that's not true. I'm still just as lost on these maps as I was first playing on them. So yeah, I'm pretty disappointed in the maps this year. They certainly have a good visual flair and I like the theme of them, but as actual maps, I just don't think they work very well. They lack flow and they lack a lot of pacing. So anyway guys, that's gonna wrap it up for today's video. What do you guys think of the maps? Do you agree with me? Do you not agree with me? Are you liking them? Are you loving them? Are you hating them? Let me know down in the comment section below. Other than that guys, thank you so much for watching. If you have enjoyed, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe for more, and I shall see you, beautiful people, in the next video.